In Alabama, there are a lot of what we call grounds for divorce. That's reasons why you can get a divorce. Some states have a no-fault divorce, which is you can get divorced without any real reason. Alabama is not one of those. So if you're going to get divorced in Alabama, it has to fall within one of our statutory reasons for a divorce. They're called grounds. It can be incompatibility of temperament, which means we can't function well as spouses anymore and we should be divorced. It can be for adultery. That is a common one in Alabama that people plead. It can be hard to prove. Just talking to somebody online may not qualify for adultery. We've got to prove there's actual physical adultery there. Also abuse, addiction, abandonment, other issues like that can all qualify as grounds for a divorce. If you need to know, do I have a legitimate grounds where I can get divorced in Alabama? You really should reach out to Word Family Law because we can help you figure out what of those grounds would qualify in your case. We divide assets in a divorce on a fair and equitable basis. So it's not always 50-50. It can be many times a 50-50 division, but assets are going to be divided equitably or fairly between the two spouses. That's going to have into consideration what value you brought to the marriage, if you brought a substantial amount in, or if things have all been developed in the marriage between the two partners, or maybe if things have changed dramatically. Or don't be afraid if you've been a stay-at-home spouse and you think, oh, they have made all the money, they paid all the bills, I'm going to get nothing. That's not true. In Alabama, you're a family, and when it's divided, these family assets are going to be divided in a fair and equitable way. You might wonder, what is alimony? You've heard that word, maybe you've seen it on television, and you wonder, what is alimony? Can I qualify for it? How is it determined? How much is it going to be? So alimony is basically money that is paid to one spouse after a divorce. And it can be a temporary basis, what we call rehabilitative alimony, where you're going to get it for a certain amount of time till you can get back on your feet. Sometimes it's a permanent award of alimony because you have a set dollar amount that's going to be given and maybe paid out in payments over a number of years or maybe for the rest of your life. The amount of alimony is going to be determined by a lot of things. It can be determined by the amount of money that you and your spouse have made during your marriage. It can be determined by the kind of lifestyle quality you deserve to be able to keep up after your divorce. It can be determined by wrongdoing by one spouse or the other during the marriage. And all of those things can affect how much alimony is awarded, how it's awarded. You may wonder, will I get alimony? Well, often, yes. If there's a divorce and one spouse has been a stay-at-home full-time husband or wife, we are always going to ask for the other party to pay alimony, unless you've just done something really terrible. But most of the time, we're going to ask for the other party to pay alimony because you need at least a couple of years, maybe to get some education, maybe to get a job and starting to work your way up to where you can earn an amount to be able to live at the same lifestyle level you've been used to during your marriage. Because, you might have child support, but that doesn't mean child support alone is going to take care of you in that short term. So alimony is often awarded. We've got to show the reasons you deserve it, that your spouse has the ability to pay it, and how it's going to affect you and your children's lives after the divorce is finalized. What are the basics of custody in Alabama? Now, you've heard the word custody. You may not know what it means. Most people think custody is where the children lay their heads down at night and where they're going to sleep, who takes care of them most of the time. But custody can be legal or physical custody. Both of those are going to come into play. When we talk about legal custody, many times the parents after a divorce are going to share joint legal custody, which simply means that both parents have input and decision-making authority over these children. Because, look, you've been a parent for all these kids' lives. You think you ought to have some say about whether they're going to go to school, if they're going to have a surgery, what kind of religious upbringing they'll have, maybe even who their friends are going to be or what kind of social or cultural activities they're going to be involved in. All of those things come into play with legal custody. And then on the other side, the physical custody is so important because as a parent, you want and you need to know that your children are taken care of, that their education is provided for, that their medicines are given on a regular schedule. Those things about where a child lives are extremely important. So in Alabama, we break it down into legal custody and physical custody. Many times parents will share joint legal custody with one parent being designated as the primary physical parent. Some courts in Alabama only award sole physical custody, and they don't do any kind of shared schedule like that. At least they don't designate it as a primary physical. It'll be sole custody to one parent. But more often than not, parents can share joint legal custody, which means you both have the right to have input into what's going on in the children's lives, even if the children primarily live with one parent or the other parent. So if you have a divorce where you are going to share joint legal custody, but your spouse gets primary physical custody, the good news is that doesn't mean you're cut out altogether. That's a basic you need to understand, is that you can have joint legal and primary physical, and you're still fully involved as a parent. That just means the child's going to live most of the time with the other parent. And that's okay. That doesn't mean you're any less of a parent, because what you want to do as far as custody is concerned, you want to make sure that your maybe your work schedule or your housing situation, that all those things are set so that when you're seeking physical custody of your children, you're in a place where you can provide for them at least half of the time or all of the time. The great news is a big change in the last several years in Alabama law is that now our courts prefer for parents to share equal time. There was a time when the mom was always going to have primary physical custody. Kids would visit with the dad every other weekend. That is not where we're living right now in Alabama any longer. Now the law prefers for a parent in almost every county. There's one or two counties where it's still a little traditional, but most of the time, in most of Alabama, where we practice all over the state, parents are going to start out with the assumption they should have equal time with the children unless one side or the other proves a really good reason why they shouldn't have it. If you have questions about custody, divorce, child support, paternity, alimony, adoptions, any of those family law issues, I invite you to reach out to our office right now.